Hello, everybody. Andy Jacob here with the .com Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series. I have a great show today. You know, we always love bringing leaders in their particular space on the show. And anytime we get an expert that really understands the ins and outs of their particular space, their particular area of expertise, we love to bring them on the show. And of course, something that's, I feel, has become almost a lost art is sales. And one area of sales that really is interesting to me, because I really started my career back when I was 14, 15 years old doing it, is door-to-door sales. And believe it or not, there are a lot of companies out there that still sell door-to-door, and they still do a very good job getting across their ideas, getting across their service components to the people on the other side of the door. And they actually sell door to door. And it's a very fascinating business to me. So I wanted to bring on one of the leaders in the space. He trains companies how to sell door to door, and his business is burgeoning. I mean, it's really fascinating. It's sort of opposite of selling online. It's selling face to face. And if you don't know how to sell face to face, door to door, if you're in that space or want to get into that space, man, you have a tough time unless you hire somebody like Lenny, who's the CEO of D2D Millionaire. Of course, that stands for Door to Door Millionaire. He teaches companies and their salespeople how to sell door to door. And for any entrepreneurs watching the show, even if you're in a tech space, even if you're coming up with the next latest and greatest software, you can learn so much from Lenny about the way he approaches his business and the way he teaches salespeople, of course, to integrate themselves into the lives of the people that they're selling and sell based on, well, we're going to keep that a secret for a minute until we get Lenny on the show. Lenny, welcome to the .com Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series today.
Thank you, Andy. It's a pleasure to be here. I sure appreciate the invitation and looking forward to this one. This is going to be great.
Yeah, I just took my glasses off because, of course, I want to settle in. I've actually scheduled some extra time for you. I love having you on the show. Before we get started, of course, tell us a little bit about D2D Millionaire, what it's all about, and then we have so many questions for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started D2D Millionaire about 10 years ago, about a decade ago. And really, the idea was when I got into door-to-door sales, it was in the late 90s. And there was not a lot out there about door-to-door. There was this interesting underbelly of, do you have to lie, cheat, and steal your way to be successful in door-to-door? And you know, there's not a lot written about it. So when I started my own companies that did door-to-door back in the early 2000s, I started to put together a system of what worked for me. I was very successful working for the likes of like Orkin Pest Control and some of the big names out there in that space. And what I found is I'm an ordinary guy. I'm not some superstar. Sometimes you see these guys talking to people in their sales and they're just almost like naturally born sales killers. They can just sell anybody anything. Well, for me, I really had to work at it. And through repetition of knocking thousands of doors, talking to thousands of people, I really figured out a system that works that helps people progress along that sales flow process is what I call it.
Yeah, I love it. You put together a great system. And for people watching the show, if you've never sold door to door, I mean, that's really where salespeople can cut their teeth and really learn how to interact with people in a meaningful way. Look them in the eye and tell them, you know, what their needs are, or find out what their needs are so you can give them what they want and what they need, of course. And Lenny's put a system together. He's put a program together. But before we get into it, and we talk about salesmanship, what types of companies are still selling door to door, Lenny? What types of companies reach out to you and they say, hey, we've heard about what you're doing. We've heard about this system. I want to get my salespeople into this systematic approach to getting from A to Z, getting to the opening of the door to the closing of the sale. What types of companies reach out to you, Lenny, and they say, hey, let's talk?
Yeah, primarily I'm working with a lot of companies in the home service industry. And so obviously I have my own pest control companies. I started with that. But in the last decade, I've been training roofing companies, solar companies, HVAC companies, pool cleaning companies, window washing, power spraying, house cleaning, carpet cleaning. I mean, you name it. Anything to do with the home service industries, you can make an impact knocking on someone's door. And the secret behind that as well is not just having that program success and that succession that you follow these steps and how I teach how to be effective and how to be successful at door to door. But from a business standpoint, what door-to-door accomplishes is it accomplishes some route density. It maximizes some efficiencies within your company, where if you put an ad out there, maybe a radio spot or a billboard, you never know where your clients are going to come from, what zip codes and everything else. With door-to-door, you can really compress the wear and tear on your vehicles and, windshield space and fuel costs and all of those things. So to me, teaching the system is one part, but actually incorporating door to door can actually help your company in a lot more different ways. Now, I will say, besides the home services industry, I mean, I've coached insurance company leaders, fintech companies as well. You name it. Anybody that wants to do direct sales, whether it's D2D or B2B, right? Business to business, the same principle and the same processes apply.
Yeah, of course, you're a best-selling author as well. We're going to put some links up to the book that you've written about this. A lot of people are raving about the book. You talk about this density of business, and that's very important because, for example, in the pest control business, if you have a couple of routes that are all condensed within a couple neighborhoods, that saves on gas, saves on time, saves on transportation costs versus having that same truck or two going to, a 20 or 30 or 40 square mile density. So this door-to-door opportunity condenses the value proposition. It condenses what I would call the ROI of a business because their overhead can possibly decrease by having this more densely populated group of consumers that are buying the product or service. And that way your ROI increases. So it's fantastic. Now, let's talk about it. So we think about it, we think about the old days. We think about some of the stories and some of the fun, cartoons that are out there about door-to-door salespeople. Let's talk about it, though, in terms of your system. Here we are, 2023. It's a whole different world. There's a different way to connect with people. People are smarter. They understand the sales game a little bit better. When we think about the system, what are some of the basic premises, Lenny, that you're trying to get across to the companies and their salespeople about how to connect with people on a door-to-door basis?
Yeah, and again, these processes for me are something that has taken me years, decades to really perfect. And even the way I teach it now is better than when I was out doing it full time, much better, because I peeled back different layers of the onion to really make it so it's teachable, number one. Because again, like I said, to me, I'm kind of that average Joe. I wasn't born with this silver tongue and I was just really good with people. I'm probably one of the quietest guys in the room if I'm by myself or just with a group of people. Certainly be the quietest if I was by myself. But when I'm with a group of people, I don't necessarily stand out. And a lot of these sales trainers nowadays do. They're just dynamic and they've got big muscles and they really can preach and they're hard closers and how to do it. Like, I created something for the ordinary guy and gal. Somebody who, what I tell a lot of my clients, I'll say, hey, if you hire the willing, let me help you make them able. That's my pitch, is I want to take something and I've made something that's replicable, where if you have somebody who's willing to knock doors, if they just follow my program, now they have a system that they can use. And now what that system does is it creates us opportunities as business owners, as team leaders, as sales managers. We can find out where the kink in the hose is, so to speak, through this system. So, because generally what happens, and you know this, Andy, as well, is a lot of times if you're managing a sales team and that sales team isn't producing, what do you hear mostly from managers? They say, well, just go work harder. Go put in more time. And that can be accurate, right, in some instances. But sometimes it's that kink in the hose somewhere along the line that they're just not doing something right. And now that I've actually got the process listed out, and it's pretty basic, it's a 6-step process. Now, within each 6 steps, there's a lot of different branches of the tree, and it goes a lot of different ways. But really, it's the initial approach, right? Like you said, what do you say? That person opens the door. What's the most effective thing to say? You've got about 20 to 30 seconds, 45 at most, where you've got to make an impression on that person that they're going to want to keep talking to you. So the initial approach, dialing that in, super important. You're going to say that more than you say anything else. The second thing that I'm looking to do is qualify somebody. How do I know if that person is worth my time to talk to or they're a waste of my time? And so I've identified 3 primary qualifiers to know if you should continue spending time with that person or not. Because sometimes that's the biggest mistake sales reps make is they're talking too long to somebody who what I'd call mission impossible. You're not going to sell him. I'm not going to sell him. You're not going to sell him. Why are we spending time with that person? So I've tried to put that up front in my sales flow process as well. So initial approach, then you qualify the person. Once they're qualified, you know they're worth your time. Now you value build. We got to talk about how you build proper value. Don't stray and try to build all sorts of value, but how you've qualified them, you build value in that realm. After you've built value, you go to the close, right? We all know about closing. If you're in sales, you know about closing. I teach about my closing techniques that I think are very normal and natural ways to close. I'm not some big hard closer and make people feel uncomfortable. That's just not my style. But I do it in a way I think most people can relate to. Typically, after you close, you're going to have some concerns. People are going to express some concerns. So the next part of the process is overcoming those concerns. And I identify in my training, my online training, I identify the 7 most popular, I call them the Magnificent 7, but the 7 most popular concerns that you're going to hear in direct sales. And I address every single one of those. Then actually, after you overcome concerns, you close again. Once somebody agrees, you've kind of gone through that process, then it's about solidifying the sale, making sure the time and effort you put into that person is worthy enough that where they're not going to cancel. But I do also talk about there is a certain percentage of people that you do kind of want to cancel because you're not just selling the low-hanging fruit. You're actually proving that you're stretching people, and people have some buyer's remorse. That's okay within certain parameters that we set up as well. So that's really my 6-step process from, as you said, opening the door to closing the sale.
Yeah, I love it, Lenny. Of course, I think about it. I think about a company and they're in a space and they're saying to themselves, wow, I never really thought about this door-to-door, this D2D sales sort of process, but I think it could help my company. But, I've never done it. I don't really have a sales team. I'm thinking maybe I need to talk to someone to maybe put a sales team together. Do you also help companies that are thinking about this D2D concept and put them in the position to sort of start it? In other words, if they don't have the full sales team already started, but they want to start, can they reach out to you and say, Lenny, hey, we want to start this thing. Can you help us sort of from ground up?
Absolutely. Yeah. The first thing that I do is if you just go to my website, lennygray.com, I can schedule a completely free 15-minute consultation call with you to see if door-to-door is even a fit for your company. And I will tell you if it's not. And it doesn't necessarily depend on the industry so much. Most industries, I think, could be very successful in door-to-door, but it also depends on some other factors as far as where you're at from a route density standpoint, from your finances, like what can you put into this? In fact, a lot of times I encourage business owners to start by doing it themselves and just get those kinks worked out with their own sales processes they've probably already developed to see how they can incorporate that into door-to-door. So I'll set up a free call with anybody. I have time on my schedule set aside every week to talk with business owners. They typically fill up pretty quickly, but I'm happy to do that. And then we take it from a step from there. As I always tell people, let's start with the lowest cost stuff, and if you want to get really involved with me, then we can go up from there. But realistically, my 2 books are a great first place to start. A really low cost investment, $20-$30, whatever it is. You can get my books, and again, I think total the audiobooks, I narrate my audio versions. I think total they're 9-10 hours, so you can spend 9-10 hours for, $30-$40, and you can get a lot of information about door-to-door. And then we can start to look at private coaching calls. We can look at my online training. You go to lennygray.com/training, and now you've got my training program where, again, you hire those people who are willing. Now we can sit them and onboard them in a systematic way where everybody's trained the same way, so that, again, we can identify where those gaps are if we do have issues with sales reps not performing or underperforming.
Yeah, that's a lot of value. And just off the top of my head, I'm thinking about the types of service companies and other companies that really could gain traction and gain customers by going door to door. I mean, you think about people that do lawn care and people that maybe do garbage pickup, or people that do pest control, air conditioning and heating people, pool people. I mean, it goes on and on and on, because a lot of times homeowners or even renters are in their place of dwelling and they don't know what's available to them. So you're bringing what's available to them to their door. So let's talk about it. For people that are thinking about this, I would imagine that the first thing that they have to get through is the potential that maybe they're a little scared of just knocking on the door. So how do we get people through the idea that, hey, knock on that door, something behind that door might be really good and you might be able to help them get a service that maybe they didn't think they needed or upgrade the service that they're currently receiving.
Yeah, and that is a frightening thing. And I will tell you, as 25 years in the door-to-door space, I still, when I go up and knock a door and I'm training and I'm having people shadow me so they can kind of see how it goes with whatever product or service we're selling, there's still butterflies. Right. And this is 25 years and there's still butterflies. So that doesn't go away generally. There's probably a few out there that it does and they're just naturals at it. Most people like me, there are those butterflies. But I think that goes back to the importance of having that system. Because if you just go out there and go, well, I'll just say what the first thing that comes to my mind is, your mind's probably going to go blank because you're so nervous and scared that you're not going to know what to say and you're going to fumble all over yourself. So, the other thing I think about with that, Andy, is I always say with training, with having the right training, with training the proper way, then there's 3 R's that come of that. Number 1, you get results. So as a sales rep, if you're trained the right way, you're going to get those results. You're going to feel good about yourself. And because you get those results, you're going to be retained. You're going to stick around because you're like, hey, this is working. Now, because you're retained, the 3rd R, it's going to help you in your recruiting as a business owner because that person's going to tell their buddies who's going to tell their buddies. And now you've created this recruiting wheel because, again, you've had the right training. People have gotten off to the start that they wanted to be successful and to actually make things happen. And once they make things happen and they're successful, again, they're going to stick around. They're going to tell their friends about it. And it's just a great cycle if you can get the right training.
Yeah, I love it, Lenny. And of course, this training you provide is amazing. You mentioned sometimes you go out and let the sales manager or a sales follow you and sort of mirror you so they understand firsthand what it takes to get it done. Watch the expert, see the expert, and then, of course, replicate the expert. Let's unpack phase 1 of the 6-step program. We don't want to give all the secrets away here. I want to have a little tease, but that first impression seems to be super important. And I know that you've made almost a science of this in your 6-step process. Let's unpack that first step a little bit and talk about the first impression, how important it is, and what that step in your process really entails.
Yeah, interestingly enough, it takes, it should take 20 to 45 seconds, just depending on the product or service that you're out there promoting. But to teach it, I will give you the basics of it, but to teach this thing, as part of my training, it's probably in, half an hour, 45 minutes to talk about this. But I have what I call the 5-step initial approach. That's what I teach. And the first thing I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to get on the doors. No matter if you follow this and you think you've got this figured out, you're going to get on the doors and you're going to make the biggest mistake that door-to-door sales reps make. And the biggest mistake, somebody opens the door and the first thing out of your mouth is a question. Hey, how's it going today? Hey, how you doing? Hey, what's up? And all of a sudden, I say this in my first book, as a door-to-door rep, you have 2 strikes against you when you knock on a door. Number 1, they didn't invite you. Number 2, they don't know you. And then you're going to give them control of the conversation right away by asking a question. Biggest mistake that sales reps make. And so the first thing you do is you start with a statement and an introduction. It's, hey there, my name's Lenny. I'm the home service guy. And it's something that basic. And keep in mind, with these 5 steps, it is a run-on sentence. Sorry, English teachers out there. We are not putting periods or commas or semicolons in this. We are going to talk for 20 to 45 seconds, and we're going to get these 5 steps out. Now, the other thing, let me backtrack. The whole purpose of the initial approach, I think a lot of times goes unknown as well, where people think, I've got 20 to 45 seconds to sell this person my product. No, the purpose of the initial approach is to actually get the person to start to have a conversation with you. You want to have some back and forth. So you've got to kind of stake your claim a little bit, but then you're really just trying to get that person talking to you to see if they qualify, like I mentioned in step 2. So as we go back to the 5 steps of the initial approach, number 1 is who you are. Number 2 is why you're there. And the reason why you're there, hopefully you have other clients. Name dropping is the most powerful point of this step. In my opinion, it might even be the most powerful point of the entire initial approach. It's an interesting thing, Andy. If somebody knows that I know who they know, they treat me differently. So when I talk about name dropping, one thing that happened when I was first starting, a lot of people would make up names. And they say, the Smiths a couple blocks down. Like, to me, that is garbage. I do not teach that. I don't prescribe to that at all, because name dropping, for it to really work and to have the impact it needs to have, it needs to be relevant. It needs to be somebody knows. So if you can name drop and say, hey there, my name's Lenny, I'm the home service guy. I was just coming over from Tommy's house a couple houses down, what we're doing in the area. Then I've name dropped, and now that person knows that I know who they know. And they're going to treat me a little bit differently, and they're going to open their ears a little bit more and say, I wonder what Tommy's doing down there, because they know who Tommy is. So if I can do that in step 2 and have a relevant name drop, now you might say, well, I'm going to first start out and I'm not going to have a name. And what do I do if I'm not knocking where I have customers, or I'm a brand new company? I've started a bunch of new companies, have 0 names. The first door is the only time you should not have a name to drop, because after that, then what I'm doing to end a conversation, even if I haven't sold the person, I'm going to ask for their name. And then there's a technique behind this, Andy, like there is with everything. And the technique is, you don't just say, so what was your name? Because then somebody's looking at you like you asked for their social security number, their credit card number. They're not going to give you that readily. But if you say, oh, no problem, can't take care of you this time. Again, my name was Lenny. What was your name? And then they're going to give you their name a lot more likely, because you've offered your name first. It's that reciprocity piece, right? So now I have that name. I've got Jan here that I just talked to. So I can go next door and say, hey there, my name's Lenny. I'm just the home service guy. I was just talking to Jan next door. What I'm doing, I'm not going to say Jan's a customer. I'm not going to say she bought anything from me, but I was just talking to her. And just the fact that I have that relevance of a name drop of somebody that person's going to know, that changes the landscape of how they view me. The third step of the 5 steps of the initial approach is Black Friday. We all know the day after Thanksgiving, when business owners go from being in the red, accounting terms, being in the red all year, and then one day they all of a sudden start making money. I actually have a chapter devoted to this in one of my books. I really did a lot of studying and nerding out on Black Friday and why it worked. And the things that I found about Black Friday that makes people want to go out in the freezing cold and sleep over in the parking lot of Best Buy so they can save $100 on a flat screen, is because for a limited amount of time, for a limited amount of goods, there's a discount offered. So what I try to do is bring Black Friday to that person's doorstep. And that's going to have to be determined by the individual company, what they can offer, what kind of special deals they can do. But I'm telling you, you're going to want to offer special deals, especially for your door-to-door team, because again, they are creating those efficiencies in your business that we talked about a little earlier. Step 4 is going to be addressing a common concern. The biggest concern you're going to hear out on the doors is, we don't need it, or we already have it. And so I like to get in front of concerns. And so I'm going to address one or if not both of those concerns after I kind of give my Black Friday pitch, where I might say something like, now I'm sure you already got this service, or you probably do it yourself, or maybe you don't think you need it right now, and then I'm going to go to my close. And I use it as a conversational close. Again, that's the whole point of these initial approach 5 steps is to get somebody talking. And my conversational close might sound something as simple as, so how long have you guys lived in the house? And now I can see I've kind of establish why I'm there, who I am, why I'm there, what I'm offering, addressed a common concern, which maybe has them thinking, oh my gosh, I was just going to say that to him, and now he said it to me. Now I've thrown them off balance a little bit, and then I give them a little softball pitch. How long have you guys lived in the house? Which people know the answer to that generally. And that starts the conversation. So anyway, I know that's rambling a little bit, but that is the 5 basic steps to an initial approach.
Yeah, I mean, so much to unpack there. I mean, for the people watching the show, you listen to this, you have to grab Lenny's book or reach out for the 15-minute phone call. I mean, there's so much to learn. Now, I know also in the home services business, there's a lot of referrals if you ask for them. So for example, if there's a company doing work at a home and they say, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, we've enjoyed working on your home. Do you have some neighbors that that maybe possibly could enjoy this type of service, the same service we provide you? You'll say it more eloquently than I will. And then you go knock on those doors, but then you actually have a real firsthand referral from someone who they really know that really sent you over. How valuable is that?
Yeah, in fact, that touches exactly on that last step of that sales flow process, is solidifying the sale. Before I leave, I have 13 steps. We're not going to go through all those right now, Andy. Again, we got to leave some of the secrets out there. But I have 13 steps that once somebody agrees and says, okay, yeah, we'll go ahead and sign up for that. Well, now, before I just say, okay, have a nice day, we'll see you tomorrow, I've got 13 different steps, and it can vary from industry to industry. Most of them are going to be applicable to almost every industry. One of those is asking for referrals. Because now you've got somebody who's excited about it, and what kind of referral promotion or discount can you offer that person? And I don't just say, hey, do you know anybody? Because again, you're normally going to go, somebody's going to say, I don't know, maybe just check my neighbors or whatever. But I'm going to say something like this. I'm going to say, so give me 3 names of people you know that might benefit from my service. And I'm going to commit them to that by asking a very direct question. And I might even piggyback that with, and if any of those 3 sign up for the same service you had, I'm going to offer whatever the promotion is that you can offer for the referral discount. So again, yes, referrals and just getting in once you've gotten into the door and you've committed that person to a sale, now we start to ask for referrals. And again, that just makes that salesperson even more powerful, in my opinion.
Yeah, Lenny, when somebody says no to you over a phone call, or they say no to you over an email, or they say no to you over a chat or a Zoom call, it's a little bit different than someone saying no to you in person. So how do you get the sales teams that you work with to understand that no is part of the thing that they're going to have to deal with? Nobody bats 100%. And how do you explain and teach them the fact that a no really potentially, if turned the right way, could be a positive for them?
Yeah. So, we can hear the cliches. I know some people are thinking, oh, the no I'm hearing is the next step to the first yes that I get. Or whatever. We've all heard that. But the reality of it is this: 74%, studies have shown 74% of direct sales reps fail. And the reason they fail, again, is because their training falls short. And they're not trained in a way to have expectations set for them. Because in direct sales, in door-to-door sales anyway, most opportunities have about a 3% closing ratio. So think about that. I've got to talk to 100 people, and 3% is good. Like some of them are under 1%, depending on what you're selling. I've got to talk to 100 people, and maybe 1 to 3 of them buy. That means I've went through 97 to 99 no's. If your reps are trained properly, not to think they're just going to go out and knock doors and 50% of the people they talk to are going to tell them yes, but if they have those proper expectations set and we're tracking the right metrics as they are knocking, that's what's so important about this as well. Because a lot of times people say, well, this is where the manager that says, just go work harder and it's all going to work out. This is where that manager falls short and can't really help his or her sales team, is because they're not dialing into the specific reasons that rep isn't selling. Are they talking to enough people, qualified people, homeowners? Once they do qualify people, are they able to close, that number of, that certain number of people that we're looking for? And after they close those people, are they getting people cancel after they close? Maybe they're not solidifying the sale well enough. That's why each of these 6 steps, you can find out where that kink in the hose is, I mentioned earlier, and you can get people on the right track. So even though they do hear the no's, what we want to do is just slowly see that closing ratio climb. And it's a slow climb, especially if we're talking a 1 to 3%, closing in general. It's a small climb, but it's a climb nonetheless. And that's what we've got to have them to understand.
Yeah, it's interesting for the sales geeks watching the show, people that like the sales cycle. Is this set up, is this set up as a one-time close, or is there ever an opportunity to go back at these people a second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth time?
Yeah, it depends on the situation, but I have circumstances where I'll have somebody and I've sold their next door neighbor. I go to them, they say no, I go next door to them. I sell that next door neighbor. Now I've got this person that is basically surrounded by somebody that we're servicing. And now I'm actually going to go back to that person. It might be, several minutes later, just to let them know, hey, just so you know, I actually got this person. That's not typical, I would say, but re-knocking, going back through a neighborhood. This is why making a good impression for yourself and for the company you represent is so critical to me. Like everything to me about overcoming concerns, it starts with this step. It's called positive reinforcement. So if somebody says, hey, just leave me your business card, I'm never going to say, well, I don't carry any business cards. This isn't a call-in discount. It's take it or leave it. Like, I don't want to leave that impression, because I'm going to go back to that person. I'm going to go back to that neighborhood weeks, months, years later to try to sell that person again. The interesting thing that I've found as well, Andy, is that when you go back to a neighborhood, if you're the same representative that is going to these neighborhoods and you go back, people listen to you more and are a lot more likely to buy the second, third, fourth time back, because number one, they realize you're not going away, and they get to know you a little bit. But number two, anytime you pitch some kind of a service or product, even if they don't buy from you, trust me, people are thinking about that now. They're looking out their windows going, man, our windows are really dirty. It's interesting to me as I've been out, selling certain home services. You've made an impact on somebody when you walk down the street, maybe come around the block, and then that person is doing the very thing at their house that you're trying to sell them. And you've been, I knew I built a need in you. So a lot of times you're planting seeds that can be harvested a little bit later.
Yeah, I love it. It's really interesting. And of course, when we look at the concentration of the door-to-door sales teams, and I look at sort of them going out into the neighborhoods, I look at you, Lenny, you've got a great looking logo on your lapel. It says, D2D Millionaire. I love that so much. How important is it to have a uniform or something that identifies you, or a shirt and a baseball cap with the name of the company, something like that, so that the people opening the door know that you're a legit guy or gal from a company that's maybe been branded right in a uniform? Is that important?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it needs to be consistency across the board with a uniform, right? Like your brand, your name, your company, you have to be represented. I recommend ID badges as well. Just anything to make that official look. And we can talk into solicitors' licenses. Some people might be saying, well, in my county or my city, you can't get solicitor's permits, or they cost this much, and all of those things. Get them. If you've got the right salesperson, trust me, there were times, whether it was my company we paid for it, or as selling for Orkin Pest Control back in the day when I first started out, they would be a fool not to pay $100 a month for me to have a soliciting license when I'm going to bring them tens of thousands of dollars in business. So you want to pay for those kind of things. You want to be, again, cognizant of the rules and regulations that certain municipalities, cities, counties, and those types of things require. But at the end of the day, yes, the more professional you look, the better impression you give people, the more believable you become as well.
Yeah, I love it, Lenny. Of course, we have entrepreneurs watching the show. They're in sales. Everybody's in sales, whether you're selling tech or software, or you're a venture capitalist, a private equity firm, everybody's selling something to someone. You can be a father and a mother and trying to sell your 15-year-old, son on getting better grades at school. I mean, you're selling something all the time. So from your perspective, from your analysis, from your 6-step program, from the platform you've built for all these people that want to learn from the best of the best from your team, and from your books, and from your, I'm going to call it technology stack, which it really is, because people can go in and they can learn by watching videos, reading things that you've written and things like that. For the people that aren't doing door-to-door sales, let's talk generally about sales. I know it's kind of a big, well, I'll bring it back on the show. We'll do an hour just on sales, but maybe you can share just some sales insights to the people that aren't doing door-to-door sales, but they're in the sales business.
Yeah, no, we talk about this in my training as well, because it's not just for door-to-door sales. It's anybody that has their hands and fingers into the sales process within your organization that can benefit from my training. So I don't care if it's a CSR, if it's an inbound, outbound call center folk. I don't care if it's somebody who is just, reaching out to warm leads, that's following up on appointments. Like, the process works at all levels. And so it doesn't matter what it is. But I will tell you, there's some nuances based on what that funnel or that vehicle is for selling. Because if you're on the phone, it doesn't matter what you look like. It matters what you sound like. Are you smiling? Because people can know if you're smiling, even if you're talking on the phone to them. Do you have good energy? I always talk about be a 7 in sales, which normally, again, if I'm just hanging out with friends and family, I'm probably a 2 or a 3. I'm pretty boring, type of a guy. I was an only child, for crying out loud. I just learned to entertain myself, and so I don't do well in crowds, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, in a sales situation, whether you're on the phone or on the doors or whatever your situation is, you have to bring a little energy. You have to bring a little more than you normally have. Generally, I don't have to tell reps, tone it down. You're a 10, you're a 9. You're just being too much, too in the face. You're infomercial right there at them. We don't want to be like that. But to me, being a 7 is about the perfect level where you bring that energy, because you want to pull people along with you with that energy. Because like I always say, in terms of the Black Friday special, if you're not excited about your Black Friday offer, why in the world is somebody that doesn't know what the offer is going to be excited about it? So it's in general, in all sales aspects, I think just bringing a good energy and being organic, not saying the same thing where it sounds like you're going off a script. You can still go off a script. Again, I've got steps and processes, but you want it to sound organic. You want to be natural. You want to make that person feel like, wow, this person's actually talking to me and they're selling me something that's the perfect fit for my place, whether it's my apartment or my house or my whatever. And so sales to me is about energy, it's about education, and it's about really just making a connection with that person on the other side of the door or the other side of the phone.
Yeah, I love it. I love to take that point that you just made and then roll it into talking to the entrepreneurs watching the show, because this is a perfect fit. And for the entrepreneurs watching the show, maybe you're hitting a tough time. Maybe you're hitting a pothole in the road. Maybe there's some potholes along your path from going from A to Z, and you don't know what to do. You freeze in the frame. Maybe you don't know how to jump over a pothole or get around it or bust through it. Whatever it may be, entrepreneurs have challenges. So Lenny, maybe you can share some insight based on your experience as an entrepreneur about what it takes to get through those tough times and keep on pushing.
Yeah. And it's tough. Sales is tough to bring in new business no matter where your company's at, whether you're just starting and you're trying to build a customer base, or you've built a customer base and you're trying to keep that customer base or grow that customer base. There, as an entrepreneur myself for 25 years, there's always going to be challenges. There's always going to be hiccups or potholes in the road, as you had mentioned, Andy. So what I've always said, my business partners know this about me, is I developed a skill with direct sales. And I call door-to-door sales, I write about this, but I call it the armpit of all sales. I mean, it is the bottom to me, but I feel 100% confident if everything went to heck and my company fires everywhere and we were losing customers, whatever reason, I know I could go knock the door and I could go be successful and bring us a customer base back. I know that because I've developed this skill. So as an entrepreneur, I think if you can be good at the bottom and just direct sales in general, if you can be good and you have a process and you're teaching it the right way and it's an effective way, if you can do that, your business will always be in good shape regardless of what's happening around, because you can put that on you. Again, the best investment you can make is an investment in yourself. And that's what I did by learning this process, by, again, knocking thousands of doors, talking to hundreds of thousands of people, is I learned this process that I think could apply to any entrepreneur, hopefully, where, again, if all things, worst case scenario, all things are coming to an end, you can at least have that skill of being able to sell. That will save you every time.
Yeah, I love it. And before I let you go, I need to talk a little bit about mentorship. Throughout your years and throughout your process, you had to have learned this. You learned a lot on your own, but you also learned from some great mentors, some great salespeople, some other people that sort of showed you the way. And then after maybe they showed you the way, maybe you brought what they brought to the table and then made it your own way and incorporated many of the things that you learned. In your own life, how important has it been to surround yourself with people that can mentor you and can educate you so that you keep on evolving as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, you never want to be the smartest guy or gal in the room, right? We hear that all the time. You want to surround yourself with people who can teach you, who you can learn from. And I've found that extremely valuable. I will say from my beginnings, my baby steps as starting in door-to-door, I had nobody. I had to learn this on my own. I was given a manual, you'll laugh at this, but I was given a manual that was like 12 pages long. I had the thing memorized like my first week knocking doors. And there was just so much more to learn. And that was one of my inspirations for writing these books, is I don't want people to have to start where I started, where it was like, figure it out. I mean, the first time I had a trainer come to train me, I remember it was set up and they kept postponing it. They were flying somebody out from corporate. And as we're leaving the training meeting, the trainer looks at me and says, you know what? I've actually got to catch a flight. Can I just get you on video what you're doing so I can show that to other people? Because you're doing really well. And I went, wait a minute. I'm supposed to be learning something. I didn't learn anything. I had to learn it all myself the hard way. But the older I've gotten, is I've surrounded myself with so many great clients of mine that are doing wonderful things. I've learned so much from them. So giving back to them, to me, is great. But taking and absorbing what I've learned from them, be it other things outside of door-to-door, has been a fantastic way to learn and grow for me as an individual and for my business as well.
Yeah, I love it, Lenny. Thank you so much. We kept you over time, and I knew we were going to, and we want to bring you back to talk about more of the steps. But for the people that are intrigued, reach out to Lenny. I mean, he's the king of D2D, and he has great insight. And what I love about Lenny also, and I learned this during the pre-interview call, is that he's always learning. He always wants to learn more. And the more he learns, the more he's able to bring to the table. He has basically a foolproof system, a stepping stone system that gets you from point A to Z, which is the introduction to the close, and then the post-close questions, and the post-close answers, and the objection response system. So anybody thinking about doing this, this is a great way to go. Buy Lenny's books, reach out for the 15-minute conversation, have Lenny come to you, go online on his platform, whatever it takes. But I'll tell you one thing, like Lenny says, if you become great at sales, you're always going to have a place, and your business is always going to be in good shape because you can always bring that next customer in the door. Lenny, thanks so much for coming on the .com Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series today.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure, Andy. Thanks for having me.